AC/DC once said, if you want blood, you got it. The Pittsburgh Penguins went into Montreal and said, if you want goals, we got them. Hunter and I are going to recap a huge win for the Penguins and more on this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me across all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet. Joined as always by my co-host, the one and only, the illustrious Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's account a follow at LO_Penguins. And of course, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget that we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. Plus, if you follow us on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification button so you can be among the first to know when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes. Before we get into it, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, if you were looking for offense from the Pittsburgh Penguins in the last couple of weeks, it was able to be found at the Bell Center in Montreal as the Penguins absolutely crush the Montreal Canadiens 9-2. No, I did not misspeak. The Pittsburgh Penguins put up 9 goals, including 6 unanswered in the third period against the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday night. It was an amazing performance from the Penguins. Started off a little shaky in the first period. There was some penalty trouble as well in the second, but overall the Penguins stuck with it and broke through in a huge way in the third period. This is the most incredible part of the win to me, Hunter, that I'm going to bring up. And I know you have plenty of thoughts on this game because how could you not when your team scores 9 goals in a game? But this stat stood out most to me. The Penguins scored 9 goals on Thursday night, and no player named Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin scored any of those 9. So the Penguins were able to get some depth-ish scoring, but the Penguins played a very complete game. They stuck with the process. They were able to kill off their penalties. They were able to get production on the power play. And they just blitzed Montreal on Thursday. So, Hunter, I don't know where you want to begin because there is quite a lot of meat on this bone.
Well, I really have 2 big takeaways from this game, at least to start off. Number 1, holy crap, that was a lot of fun. And number 2, my God, the Canadiens absolutely stink. I love Nick Suzuki. I love Cole Caulfield. Lane Hudson was once again brilliant to watch with a puck on his stick. He really is a one-man wrecking crew, breaking out of his own zone, especially in the offensive zone as well, just doing his thing from the point. But they really need more high-end talent if they want to accelerate this rebuild. Yeah, their prospects also aren't ready to go yet, but you can just see outside of a few players, there's really still not as much in this lineup compared to other rebuilding teams that are a little bit ahead of them. And the Canadiens, they also handed out zone entries like pieces of candy on Halloween. They were horrendous defensively in this game, looking like the Penguins were playing in the early portions of the season with the way they were playing in their own zone. The Penguins were kind of toying with them for a good portion of this game, at least in the second half. I would say the first 25 to 30 minutes were kind of mostly even. I didn't like the Penguins game. Well, I shouldn't say that. I didn't think they were on their A game for the first 25 to 30 minutes. They really turned it on, I would say, in the second half of this game and really just embarrassed Montreal in the final 30 minutes of this game. They got contributions from every single line, but we got to start, man, with Bryan Rust, Rickard Rakell, and Sidney Crosby. That line was torching Montreal all night long and didn't even matter who Marty St. Louis put out there to try and stop them. They were just feasting. Raquel, he gets the first goal. Also, great pass from Chris Letang to really make up for his mistake on Montreal's first goal. He should have just dumped the puck into the corner and let the forwards go get it. Instead, he did a high-risk pass, and he got burned for it. But again, really nice pass to get it to Raquel for that first goal. And then you saw Rust and Raquel really go to work in this game. I mean, Bryan Rust was Mike Matheson's daddy on that second goal. I mean, goodness gracious, his patented move that he always does, but he made Mike Matheson look like a pylon there. And
the biggest thing that stood out to me, sorry to interrupt you, Hunter, is there was a new addition to his classic move. It was that stutter step on the half wall. And listen, I agree that he absolutely owned Mike Matheson last night. But if you watch the film on Bryan Rust and you see that patented move coming where he comes down the half wall and then cuts right to the front of the net and buries it, he usually just dips his shoulder, leans on you, and goes to the net. So Matheson played it well. He played it as if, all right, here it comes. Rust is going to lean on me. I'm going to force him into the corner so he can't get to that lane. That stutter step, Matheson bit on it so hard that Rust basically got to go to the front of the net unchallenged. And that is something that you wouldn't expect for a player who's been in the league this long to be able to learn a new trick. But man, that quick stutter step that made it look like he was going to turn and make a pass, Matheson completely got fooled on it, and it was brilliant to watch.
Oh, it was awesome. And don't get me wrong, I know Mike Matheson has never really been able to play that good of defense throughout his career. We saw that firsthand when he was here in Pittsburgh. They didn't call it the Mike Matheson experience for no reason, Pat. He was mostly all offense. At times, he was okay defensively, but most of the time, it really wasn't pretty. You saw that again there with that play from Rust. And then right after that, you saw Rust and Raquel really go to work. First, Raquel has a great pass to Rust, and then Rust returns the favor. These two were in sync all night long. And speaking of Bryan Rust, once again, I said this on Twitter, I said this on Blue Sky as well. He is the ultimate Penguin. There are not many players who care more about the logo than him. What a performance for him to get the HT. He was a menace all game long. And if he is still here after, Crosby retires, after, Malkin retires, Chris Letang, he will 100% get the C on his sweater, in my opinion, and I think it will be deserved. Again, that's if he is still here. That's still obviously several seasons away. Well, I shouldn't say several, so at least a few seasons away at this point. But again, there are not many players who care more about the logo than him. Raquel, he was also great. He has double-digit goals this season. You had great puck movement on the power play, and I know I've been pretty against the split power play units this week. I will give it its flowers last night. I thought the power plays were both really good. The puck movement was pretty crisp. They were getting the pucks to the net pretty efficiently. Sam Montembeault really had no chance on a lot of those goals. The split power play, at least last night, was working pretty well. You had Anthony Beauvillier get a goal. Matt Nieto scores because, of course, he does. As soon as we kind of crap on Mike Sullivan for putting him back in, he scores. I will say, really nice pass from Matt Grzelcyk there. And speaking of Matt Grzelcyk, he was fourth in average game score last night behind the top line of Crosby, Raquel, and Rust. That is the highest average game score from Matt Grzelcyk so far this season. So, you know what? I will take that considering how much we have dumped on him on the show. He played a very good game last night. But we also should shout out Tristan Jarry. Outside of that first goal, it is hilarious. You look at the numbers now, 5 times he has given up a goal on the first shot of the game this year. And not everyone is his fault. Let's be real. Chris Letang put him in a really bad situation there. But it is weird that he's given up a goal on the first shot 5 times this season. But after that, he was splendid. He made some really big saves, especially when the Penguins were being hemmed in during the first half of that game. Really settled in, played a really good game last night. Big bounce back performance from him. And, again, that was a really nice win. That 6 out of 8, everyone contributed. And the scary thing is, hopefully Crosby and Malkin start waking up at some point because they did all of this and none of those two score. Crosby did have 3 assists. He played a really strong game, especially in the second half. But those two didn't even have to score for this team to score 9 goals.
It was a total complete performance from the Penguins last night. Like you said, you do have to shout out Tristan Jarry, .913 save percentage, 21 saves on the night. And a lot of those 21 were high quality chances in the first 30 minutes of the game, because when you look at the box score, Penguins outshoot the Canadiens in the first period 10-6, but then Montreal outshoots them 11-9 in the second. And for a large portion of the second period, the Canadiens did push the play. They had multiple power play opportunities. They got several good looks, and Tristan Jarry was there for most of them. And it was, as we talked about, a bounce back performance and start for him, which again is part of this process of rebuilding Tristan Jarry. He is going to, at times, get another start after a subpar start before that. And this was an example of that last night. We'll see what happens in Ottawa when we preview that game in the second segment. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ned get the start, but that's for the next segment. Overall, though, you look at this game, and every aspect of the game that they needed to worked for them. They cleaned up the defensive zone, which, as you said, the first goal, first shot on Jarry, can't really put on him. It was a good move, and he was put in an absolutely poor position by a pinch by Chris Letang, or a bad pass, I should say. And just a great goal. You can't pin that on him. It sucks that it's the first goal or first shot and it keeps up that trend, but he bounces back from that. The power play goes 2 for 3. The penalty kill goes 4 for 4. And you get scoring up and down the lineup. And overall, you have to be very happy with this game. One last thing I want to add in, just to put a fine point on how dominating of a victory this was for the Penguins. If you look at the 5-on-5 statistics at Natural Stat Trick for this game, the Penguins controlled 64% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5 for the whole game. They never fell below 60% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5 in any period of the game. 69 in the first period, nice. 60% in the second, and then 65% in the third. And then they had 12 high danger chances to Montreal's 9. You would like to see that 9 cleaned up, but again, they played it fairly even through the first 25, 30 minutes, so you expect to give that up. And then the expected goals percentage, 63%. So this wasn't just Sam Montembeault falling apart. This wasn't Montreal laying an egg. The Penguins had a dominating performance against Montreal on Thursday night.
Oh, 100%. Everyone was contributing to this win. And I want to make a few more points before we send this off to the second segment and preview this big game against Ottawa as the Penguins try to really keep this thing rolling and potentially win 7 of their last 9 games. And Bryan Rust kind of touched on what you were discussing, Pat, and how they really kept their foot on the gas pedal. He said after the game, I think we were on our toes. Even though we had a lead, we were not sitting back. We kind of just went at them, and we were able to get that fourth one. And then our power play got a big goal, which I think hurt them a bit. And we kept going from there. And that's the mentality I want them to have every time they have a lead in the third period. You saw something similar against the Maple Leafs last weekend, right? Obviously, it wasn't 9-2 level against the Leafs, but once they got that lead in the third period, thanks to Michael Bunting, they didn't just sit back. They didn't just turtle. They didn't wait for the game to come to them. No, they took the game right to the Maple Leafs, and they kept their foot on the gas pedal, and they were able to win the game and not really give the Leafs too much counterplay. You saw that again last night against the Habs. They took it to them. They didn't give the Habs really any shot to have counterplay in the third period, and it worked to perfection. So I really want to see the Penguins continue to do that in more games throughout this season. And just to, again, really illustrate, Rust and Raquel, these passes last night, man, were ridiculous. On the third goal, for example, insane pass from Raquel to Rust from a really bad angle. Rust then returns the favor. I have no idea what Laine and Hudson were doing there, just going to Rust, leaving Raquel wide open in front of the net. And then Letang buries a goal on the power play from the half wall, which, I do want to see a little bit more of on the power play if they want to, I guess, continue these little split units, if you want to call it that. And last but not least, some really cool stats from last night. The 9 goals, that's the most goals the Penguins have scored in a game since they put up 10 on the Sharks last season. This is also the most goals they have scored against the Montreal Canadiens in franchise history. Think about that. They have played the Canadiens quite a bit throughout their years of existence, they have never scored this many goals against the Canadiens. Pretty cool stat. That's also the most goals any team has scored this season so far, 9. The Penguins have that record, at least for now. And one more thing, Pat, can we please get Alex Letang to come to every single game moving forward? It seemed like he was the good luck charm that they really needed. He was around the team basically all the time in the locker room. The videos were hilarious. I am starting that petition to have Alex Letang come to every single game. And I did not know that he's already basically a teenager at this point. I remember when they won the cup in 16 and 17, he was this small little kid. I guess it just shows that we are all getting very old right now.
Yes, we are. But that'll do it for this segment. Huge win for the Penguins over the Montreal Canadiens, and they will wrap up their little mini road trip to Canada, which this on Saturday night will be their last trip to Canada this season when they take on the Ottawa Senators. Hunter and I will get you set for that game in our second segment when we come back right after this. But first, we're going to tell you about a couple of sponsors, starting with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action while watching your favorite sports. As we said, you can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30 million+ in rewards during Picksmas. If you think players like Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, or your favorite NHL superstars will get more than their projections, you can cook up those hot takes with your friends and win real money this hockey season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. You guys know I'm absolutely terrible at season-long fantasy, but when it comes to Prize Picks, as I like to say, just call me Russell Wilson because I'm in the kitchen cooking, baby. But anyway, that's enough about me and fantasy sports. You can get real money sports action on Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app, use our code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get that $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And we're not done. We got to tell you about our next sponsor. That's FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch when you're watching the NFL action this weekend, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Friday edition, and boy, is it a feel-good one after a 9-2 win of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes, and the Penguins are going to look to keep these good vibes going on Saturday night when they travel over to Ottawa to take on the Senators, and this is going to tell us quite a bit about where the Penguins are. Now, Ottawa, one of the teams we have talked about on this show that is kind of stuck in the mud. We expected them to take a step this year. They are among those teams like Detroit and Buffalo, who we have been waiting for a breakout season. They have been stuck in a rebuild for quite a while, haven't really been able to break through, but December has been kind of a mixed bag for them. They've won 3 of their last 5. They just recently beat the Anaheim Ducks 5-1. However, they will play the Carolina Hurricanes in Carolina tonight. So Saturday will be a back-to-back for them with travel. But getting back to looking at their schedule, they started the month with a shootout loss to Anaheim 4-3. They went on to beat the Detroit Red Wings and then the struggling Nashville Predators. Then they were served a loss from the New York Islanders 4-2. This is a team, Hunter, that you can see it. There is talent. They have a young core. You're just waiting for them to take that next step. So in your estimation, what do the Penguins have to do to get 2 points and continue these good vibes?
Well, I think the biggest thing with Ottawa is there's a lot of pressure, I think, with that team right now. They got to make the playoffs, because if they don't, you're only really going to see those Brady Tkachuk rumors, I think, get more steam. I know that they were really upset with the Rangers that, a report got out that apparently the Rangers are trying to pry Tkachuk out, and the Senators were like, no, that's a bunch of BS. Like, we're not going to tolerate that. And now they're going to the commissioner's office about that and all that stuff. So they're not happy with the Rangers right now. But again, until you make the playoffs, stuff like that, I feel like is only going to, get out with these little, rumors and all that stuff with the Tkachuk. So this is a big year for the Senators. I mean, you saw that pressure was really on display when they went out this summer and they got Linus Ullmark. They've been trying to fix their goaltending problem for the last several years. They have been able to do it. Ullmark this season, he's been okay, but hasn't been nearly close to the level that we saw him play at in Boston. So far this season, 8-7-2 and 18 starts, 903 save percentage, 2.70 goals against average. He'll be starting tonight against the Hurricanes. So assuming that the Senators do not go back to him on Saturday, they will go to Anton Forsberg, who really has not been that good this year, almost a 3 goals against average, 889 save percentage. So if the Penguins do go to Jari, they should have at least, a small edge in it, at least with the way Jari's been playing since coming up from Wilkes-Barre. But the biggest thing is for the Penguins, to really keep these good vibes going. Again, I would like to see Crosby and Malkin get on the score sheet. That would be awesome, just considering that they haven't been scoring as much lately. I obviously want Erik Karlsson to have a really strong performance, especially playing against one of his former teams. He's been really good these last couple of weeks. I don't think he's getting enough attention for how good he's been. He's really cut back on some of the lapses in his own zone. He's breaking the puck out more efficiently. He's been great in the offensive zone. He's been playing some really strong hockey. One of the biggest reasons I feel like why the team has won 6 over the last 8. And also Chris Letang as well. I mean, in the last 6 games, he has 8 points. 4 of those are goals. He's been tremendous. So Penguins wanted to win this one. There are 2 top defensemen who are going to have to keep playing like they're 2 top defensemen. I do expect Jari to probably go in this one again. I know you were talking about Nedeljkovic a little bit earlier and then yesterday. I don't think Sullivan is going to go to him in this game. It's not a back-to-back. Jari just rewarded you with a good start and a bounce back after how he played against Colorado. I would go back to him, but and the biggest thing for me is, getting the big boys on the score sheet, obviously continuing to get the depth scoring, but also, of course, slowing down some of Ottawa's top guys. I mean, even though they're 13-13-2 right now, Tim Stützle has been fantastic this year, 10 goals, 36 points in 28 games. Drake Batherson is also over a point per game. You also know you're going to get with Brady Tkachuk. Josh Norris is playing well. They still have Claude Giroux. This team still has quite a bit of talent up front. They still have a small depth problems, but they still have some good talent up front. My biggest worry is just the way the Penguins have played against Ottawa in recent years. I mean, this is a team that's beaten the Penguins 4 times in a row. The Penguins have not beaten the Senators since January 20th of 2023. It's really been that long since the Penguins have beat the Senators. And also, Penguins haven't won in Ottawa in over 2 years. It was a 2-0 shutout win when they won that game. Jeff Carter, your best friend, and Bryan Rust scored in that win. The Penguins have lost 4 of their last 5 games in Ottawa. It's not a place they particularly play that well. So, you also want to take advantage of the Senators. They have the back-to-back with travel. Yes, I know they'll be playing in their own arena. They'll be sleeping in their own beds after this game, but it's still Carolina to Ottawa. Pretty decently long flight home. So you want to take advantage of a team that's going to be getting in a bit late. They're not going to have their full fresh legs. The Penguins will. That needs to be a big part of their advantage, I think, for this game on Saturday too.
For sure. I know we're going to talk about it in our final segment about whether this run for the Penguins is a sign of life or if it's just a little bit of a bounce that they're getting mid-season. But this will be a bit of a test for those vibes and for this run, because when you look at the very least, the top line numbers of the Ottawa Senators, while they have an even goal differential, when you dig into some of this, they are pretty solid on the power play. We're going to see if this team can continue its good run of good penalty kills. They're 5th in the league at 27.6. And the other thing that they're going to have to take advantage of is if and when Ottawa takes penalties. This is not one of the better penalty kills in Ottawa in the league. They're 24th at just a shade over 75%. So essentially, if they can get opportunities on the power play, which has been pretty effective recently for the Penguins, that could make a huge difference for them. And like you said, you got the big names. You're going to have to shut down Batherson, Tkachuk, Stützle. And we also know who is on the Ottawa Senators, a guy who has been a Penguin killer ever since he was wearing orange, and that is Claude Giroux. He loves playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's got a lot of success against them in his career. Yeah, he's not what he was a few years back, but still a very effective player for them. His numbers don't jump off the page, but still a very good player. But overall, this has to be very similar to the game that they played against Montreal, because you're playing a team that hasn't really been able to get off the ground. They're going to be on the second half of a back-to-back. You've got a day of rest in between that. So really want to see them come out with the same kind of fire that they played against Montreal. And again, I know it wasn't a 9-2 win, but it was still a very good win. Same kind of fire they played against another Canadian team, and that's Toronto.
And you can throw the Washington Capitals game in there too. The Penguins came out and kind of bullied the Capitals to start that game. It was a little bit back and forth after, but then the Penguins completely shut them down, in the third period. You can also throw that game in there too. So, fast start very much required here, especially playing a team on the second half of back-to-back, keeping things simple. That's important, getting the timely saves. But again, continuing to get that depth scoring, getting Crosby and Malkin back on the score sheet in terms of goals, that will also go a long way. Those are just my biggest keys in terms of getting a win in this game, because if you can win this game, all of a sudden that's 7 out of 9. And again, the rest of this month, the schedule continues to ease up. They're playing a lot of teams that are right around them in the standings, including the Senators. So getting 2 points here, especially in regulation, that can go a long way towards them potentially getting closer to fully being back in this hunt for one of those potential final 2 playoff spots.
You're absolutely right. So it's Penguins Senators Saturday night at 7:00 in Ottawa. We will have a recap of that game on Monday. We're going to have that episode out for you very early on Monday, and there might be a special guest returning to Locked On Penguins on Monday, so you'll have to be on the lookout for that. But that's going to do it for our second segment. When we come back, we're going to dig a little bit more into this current run by the Penguins and our thoughts on it, whether or not we're looking at a team that's turning a corner or if this is just a mirage. And we will do that when we return right after this. But before we do that, we're going to tell you about our last sponsor, and that is Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. And that is according to a recent Indeed survey. I have not had to use Indeed to hire, but I have used Indeed when I was looking for a job. It helped me connect with my current employer as well as get me connected with other potential employers and land a few interviews. It's a great service. I highly recommend it. Indeed leverages over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, and Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on this very podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, welcome back to the Friday edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes. And as we've been saying, the Penguins on quite a nice little run right now. And it looks like, at least to the naked eye, that they are turning a corner. I am still a little bit skeptical of this, Hunter. I imagine you are as well. The thing that I want to see, this is how I'll start this. The thing I want to see them continue to do is, we know that looking at this team, you predicted them at the start of the year to miss the playoffs. I predicted them to kind of land in the same spot that they have the last 2 years, sniffing around a playoff spot, maybe sneaking in, but more than likely missing it again by a couple of points. But between the Eastern Conference being pretty top heavy and wide open right now, and mixed with the way that they're beating teams that they're supposed to beat, you said it right at the end of the last segment. The schedule does lighten up quite a bit to end 2024. They're playing a lot of teams that are right around them in the standings. Sure, they're going to see the Los Angeles Kings next week, who are looking like an absolute wagon right now. But for the most part, they are playing teams that are struggling and that are right around them in the standings. So for me to really become a believer in this current run by the Penguins, this has to continue. They have to continue to beat those teams that are right around them in the standings and that are struggling. And they have to keep stringing wins together. I'm not going to overreact to a loss here and there, but if they're winning 2 of 3, 3 of 5, 3 of 4, however you want to put it, I might start thinking this team is back. What say you?
Again, I still need to see how they do over the next few weeks to finish off 2024, heading into 2025, to really see, okay, where are they at in the standings heading into the new year? You have this game against Ottawa. Very winnable. It's a team right with you in the standings. You got to take those 2 points. You then have the Kings, a good playoff team. I don't think they're going to go that deep in the playoffs, but they should make the Western Conference playoffs, and they'll at least pose a challenge to whoever they play. You then have a Predators team that is really struggling this year. You have Barry Trotz going on local radio every week, really just crushing his team every chance he gets. He is not happy with what he's been seeing. You then have the Devils, who they're playing pretty well. I expect them to make the playoffs this year. They also usually give the Penguins fits. So that's going to be a tough game, especially in Newark, where it's pretty rare when they win. Then you have a Flyers team that's also right around them in the standings. That's a pretty winnable game still for the Penguins. You have 2 games against the Islanders. I don't think the Islanders are any good. I think they stink. Yes, I know they're getting Pelech back. Yes, I know they're going to get Duclair back soon. Same with Matthew Barzal. But I still really don't think the Islanders are any good. You should have seen what Patrick Wall was saying after how they almost blew that game against the Blackhawks on Thursday. He basically said, yeah, I mean, if I were in net, I probably would have smashed my stick in the locker room after that game with the way my other players just kind of stopped playing. He said he was really annoyed. Again, I don't really think the Islanders are that good, but still, you have a back-to-back against them. Those are gettable points right there. And then you have the Red Wings, who they also haven't been able to take that next step so far this season. So a lot of these games, very winnable. And if you're able to bank a lot of these points here to end 2024, I'll be more of a believer, and I'll be like, okay, they actually may have a shot to potentially sneak into a playoff spot once April comes around. You know, it's good that the schedule is finally easing up, but I'm not still ready to sit here and be like, oh, like they're back. Yeah, it's cool. They've won 6 out of 8. They have a chance to make it 7 out of 9, but I still need to see a few more weeks worth of good play before I'm ready to push that button and say, like, okay, this team might actually be heading somewhere.
I'm right there with you. And the other thing to keep in mind is the easing of the schedule kind of continues into 2025. You look at January, you start the year off against some good competition. You play the Panthers and then you play the Hurricanes, 2 very good teams. But then you got a game against Columbus, the Oilers, then it's Ottawa. You've got Seattle twice. You've got the Ducks. You've got Utah, you've got Buffalo. These are teams that, when you look at what is coming up, if they can continue this level of play, and let's not get it twisted, it's not a high level of play. They're just playing very simple. They're taking what the game is giving them, and they're taking advantage of playing teams that are similar to them. You have
they're
a
also
lot of that.
playing watchable hockey right now. They're not just, again, having diarrhea all over the ice like we saw to start the season. They're actually playing watchable hockey. That's at least fun too. You've won 6 out of 8. You're keeping everything simple. You're getting contributions from virtually everyone in the lineup. You're playing, what other words should I use? Normal hockey now, I think.
Yeah. And so like I was saying, you have a very similar schedule to start 2025 in January. It's a month where there are going to be losses in that month. You're going to play Carolina, Florida, Tampa Bay, Washington. Those are going to be tough games. Edmonton as well. But then you look at the rest of that schedule. Those are all 50-50 games that are very winnable. You're going to have some schedule losses in there. You only have 2 back-to-backs in January. But one of those 2 sets of back-to-backs both are at home. So it's not as if you're doing a lot of traveling. And then the other set of back-to-backs is Buffalo to DC, which again, not a lot of travel. So you will be able to get some rest and play beatable teams. But again, it comes down to they have to continue this level of play. They have to win the games in front of them, string some wins together. Like I said, whether it's 2 of 3, 3 of 4, 3 of 5, however you want to cut it, there are going to be losses in there. But if you can continue stacking wins and making yourself at least part of the race, I can see this becoming a real thing. I'm not totally sold yet. You aren't either, but the opportunity is there for them to really continue to turn a corner. And again, it'll start tomorrow night when they take on Ottawa for a chance to sweep this mini Canada trip that they're on. But that is going to do it for the Friday edition of Locked On Penguins. We appreciate you, as always, tuning in and making us part of your daily routine. So for Hunter Hodes, I'm Patrick Damp. We will be back with a fresh episode recapping the weekend for you on Monday. And thanks, as always, for tuning in. We will talk to you on Monday.